And I should say that, again, as I mentioned at the beginning, there's some terrific resources, there's some terrific examples in the book, and let's just give you a quick link to how to find the book over at Happy About. It's www.snipurl.com, then HA for Happy About, HA, My Resume, MYRESUME. If you want to go over and grab a copy of Barbara's book. Lots of terrific examples in there, and I think that will help people alongside what you've just explained there. You've been talking, though, about accomplishments, and I know that's often very difficult for us to write in terms of what we achieved. And I see so many profiles there from people that have just read like a job description, to be honest, Barbara, a list of, I was accountable for that, I managed this, I led that, I did this. And that, when I'm reading them, doesn't necessarily inspire me or necessarily represents the real difference that that person made in a particular role. Can you talk us through, let's say you were going to say about the last role that somebody had, what might it say in terms of a little bit about the company, and then how do you get to really craft accomplishments that you've been describing as so important to have on there?
Yeah, I mean, you can start out with a very brief synopsis of, the company, what the company did, and what your role was there, but brief, maybe a short paragraph, 4 or 5 sentences. And then everything below that, you do want to be accomplishment focused. So a way to start thinking about accomplishment statements is, how can I show impact? How can I help the reader understand how I've helped the companies that I've supported make money, save time, grow the business, or keep the business? Then, can I quantify these accomplishments? How can I use numbers or dollars or percentages to prove that I did something smarter, faster, or more efficiently? And then one other strategy that I think works very well when you're crafting your accomplishments, again, is to look at the themes within the chronology of your resume, within each of the positions. What are the themes within those accomplishments? So rather than just listing 10 bullet points of accomplishments, what is the big message that you want to show somebody about what you can do? Break your accomplishments up into theme categories. They sort of read like more digestible sound bites. It's much easier for your reader who's scanning the document quickly to understand your value add when you break it up that way. So the bottom line is it's all about impact and not about task.
That's really helpful for us to think about and to look at, what was the difference that we made in that particular role. And if you can quantify it, as you say, that's going to make it even more impactful. But what about the person who's finding themselves in a situation that either they want to make a complete career change, or they're looking at making a change because, let's say, something's happened in their industry, in their sector, and they now need to perhaps look at something different because of what's going on in the economy. Yeah, how do we make that transition? Because it might be those accomplishments were fine, that profile was fine in a world that I might have gone from a similar job in this company to another role in another, company B, but now circumstances or personal desires have changed.
Yeah, and I certainly have a lot of people asking me that question these days. The key is transferability. So the person really needs to look at all of their skills and then look at the industries or the functions that they're looking to transfer into and see where the relevance is. And so instead of focusing so much on chronology, again, you focus on these themes of competency. So you focus on the types of problems that you solved in one organization and how that knowledge base might transfer over to a new industry or a new type of job function. And a lot of resume writing or good resume writing is about good marketing. It's about positioning the information in the way that you want your reader to see it. So, for example, if you've got let's say you've got a 20-year career as an IT professional, but always in financial services, and now you want to get out of financial services because you're concerned about the volatility of the market. Let's say now you want to go to healthcare. You don't want your resume to scream financial services, but what you do want it to scream are the success stories you've had within an IT capacity. So you want to focus on those functional skills, perhaps have theme category headings by function, but then within each of those functions have accomplishment-driven statements.
And what about if it's not you're not going to move within the same function? So let's take, you could take my background. Most recent role within a corporate organization would have been in a senior vice president HR role. I'm now in a sector which is all about technology and communications, and it's about social media. How could I, reflect my change? And it's not that there's a common thread in terms of the HR capability running through it, let's say. There may be other people who are looking at making similar changes. Perhaps they're following something that they've been doing as a passion or a hobby, but they haven't necessarily got 20 years of experience behind them in that area.
Right. And now, in your case, even though you didn't have those exact job titles, based on what you've told me about your past background, there are transferable skills. So, for example, as an HR professional, if you were delivering training or if you were doing recruiting, those are two examples of where the transferability might be. So perhaps in the previous role, recruiting, maybe you were using some social media tools to recruit effectively. So what you would do in your new resume is capitalize on your knowledge base of the social media tools. Same thing with training. If you were doing training before, that might transfer into the public speaking that you do now, or the radio show that you're doing. You're showing the skill, the competency, and you're trying to sort of focus on that as opposed to the industry where you did it. So a lot of times, people have different skill sets that they use in different jobs, but it's all about positioning. So we really need to look at every skill that you had utilized in that position and how that skill from the past could be valuable to a new employer. And it's actually, people always think it's going to be impossible or very difficult. There's actually a lot more transferability than people realize, with the exception of somebody, sometimes somebody's changing to a career where they really don't have the skill set. Like I worked with somebody who was in publishing and then decided that he wanted to be a nurse. So in his case, he wasn't ready to write a resume. He needed to go back to school. He needed to get the training. And in his case, when he was done, we could leverage the skill set that he learned through his newly acquired skills and his education as the focal point for the resume, because that had more relevance than his previous background in publishing.
That's really helpful, because I do think there's a lot of people who are going to be looking at that, as I said, either from personal desire or kind of the consequences of what's going on in the economy at the moment.
Sure.
Now, you're very well versed online, and we talked about before that you can be found on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on Facebook, and I'm sure that you give some consideration to what people will find and read about you, almost as, I'm not sure if you think about Facebook also being a profile in terms of a resume, but it does give us a snapshot when we come over and we see you there, and it gives us a sense and a feel of you. What's your recommendation to people in terms of thinking about maybe some online platforms that they should be using or considering as part of, demonstrating their experience, not just through the physical written paper, but also online?
Well, there certainly are an abundance of them out there. I would have to say that LinkedIn continues to be the leader from a business perspective. And the nice thing about LinkedIn is it does allow you to put quite a bit of information about yourself online. The profile section is almost like a mini resume, so you can get a lot of good quality information in there. The database is very searchable, so it's very important when you're creating an online presence on LinkedIn to really fill out that specialty section, because those are the keywords that recruiters and hiring managers are often searching for when they're trying to mine the database. And same thing, you want to have accomplishment-focused, metrics-driven information within the content. You want to have a picture that's, a professional headshot. You want to make sure that you build out information on your online presence or your professional organizations or any awards you have won. So that would be for LinkedIn. I think Facebook is very interesting because Facebook does allow people to see another side of you, a softer side of you. Many people are using it for finding jobs or business development. It's just that it's a little bit different in nature, but I think that it can actually really complement your brand and what you're trying to achieve on something like LinkedIn. Twitter, same thing. You want all of your tweets to be on brand. So if you're somebody who's trying to market yourself as an operations specialist, you want all your tweets to have some to resonate in some way about what your knowledge base is. You might not have every tweet that way because obviously you're trying to build community, but you're trying to share valuable information. You're trying to position yourself. So you do want to have some consistency about the type of message that you're trying to put across professionally.
And what about other profiles? I mean, do you recommend that we should create our own profile online or use some of the services that are available, in addition to LinkedIn? Because I know there are places that, you can put your, let's say, your digital profile, your digital resume online. And you were talking earlier about adding multimedia. There's some sites that allow you to do that, such as put presentations there, put videos there, and so on.